Hello everyone and welcome back to another Hunt Showdown video. We need to talk about the Springfield. I feel that we really do, and this is coming out of various comments on my last video where people were telling me that the Springfield was a really good substitute for the Sparks, that it is a strong weapon for its price, etc, etc. And what I came to in replying to these comments was an understanding that a lot of people in the hunt community don't really understand how range drop-off works, especially for things like compact and medium ammo. That's why I want to make this video. On one hand, it's about the Springfield, on the other hand, it's about addressing a couple of misconceptions about how bullets actually work at range in this game. So let's look at it, let's break it down. We'll talk about its damage curve, how it performs at different ranges, how it measures up in stats and fire rate to similar weapons, and then we'll come to a conclusion about it. Is the Springfield a cheap head clicker that can stand in for a Sparks at only a fourth of the cost? Or is it a borderline meme weapon that should never be used seriously? I spent a few nights using the Springfield to really get into the mindset for this video, so here we go. Basic stat time. The Springfield deals 132 maximum damage to the upper torso. It's medium ammo, so that will maintain this damage until 20 meters distance. Now this is pretty decent because it can one-tap hunters missing a small health bar, and that's important. Its headshot range is a very strong 175 meters, and that's almost double that of a Winfield, but it's only a few meters further than the Carabiner. It has a respectable muzzle velocity of 490 meters per second. This is also quite good. It's significantly higher than the Winnie, the Carabiner, the Martini Henry, and it is only just below the Sparks. You do still have to lead your shots at medium range, but not by a huge amount. Then we have the rate of fire. This is governed by the 2-second reload speed, which means you have over 2 seconds between shots by the time you reacquire your target and go through the recoil animation, and this is double that of a Carabiner with the relevant sharpshooter or scopesmith perk, and it's still far too slow to take follow-up shots unless your opponent is really out of position. Due to this, we are going to assume that if you don't land a headshot, you are always going to be quick swapping to your sidearm with this gun. I really can't see much of a situation where you would have time to reload and shoot a wounded target again before they get to cover, or kill you outright if they're close enough. So at first glance, the Springfield does seem to stack up pretty well against the Sparks. It is rare that you're going to need to shoot someone further than 175 meters away, so the increased headshot range of long ammo is rarely relevant, and the damage is similarly high and can still kill wounded hunters pretty reliably. So I would forgive you if by looking at the store stats and playing around with the gun, which does actually handle pretty nicely with some good sights, if you then made a claim that the Springfield at a meager $38 is a competitive choice compared to the $130 Sparks. Logically, based on what the game tells you, that makes a lot of sense. But here's the problem, the store page doesn't tell you the full picture. To understand what's really going on, we have to look at the range falloff for medium ammo. Here is the graph. This is from update 1.3, but there have been no changes since, so it's still 100% accurate, and we're going to remove everything but compact, medium, and long rifle ammo for this video. We can see that for medium and compact ammo, the damage starts to deteriorate after only 20 meters, while long ammo retains its full damage until 40 meters. Compact drops off steeply, while medium is more steady but still drops. So in actual terms, at 40 meters, the Springfield is only doing 80% of its damage. That's only 105 damage to the upper chest. Even at this relatively close range, it can no longer kill hunters that have lost health bars reliably at all. Even a hunter on 100 health requires that chest shot to kill. Gut shots won't do it, arm shots won't do it. You need to go chest or head. Meanwhile, the Sparks at this range is still doing 149 damage, slaying anyone who's taken damage no matter where you hit them. And that's only at 40 meters. Let's stretch this out to 60 meters, which is a pretty standard engagement range when you're using a single shot rifle. At this point, the Springfield's only doing 65% of its damage. That translates to 85 damage to the upper chest. Now what this means is that quick swapping to most pistols won't even allow for lethal follow-up shots. Even with a punchy sidearm like the Pax or a Dolch, you're going to need to hit the upper chest with both the Springfield and the sidearm to kill. Now if you're using the uppercut, you're still probably going to be fine at this range, but at that point the sidearm's arguably doing more of the work than your main gun. And it seems a bit silly to bring a $38 primary with a $200 and something secondary, unless of course that primary's a Romero, and that makes total sense. But what about the Sparks at 60 meters? Well, it's still in its prime, dishing out 90% of its damage and hitting for 135, and that's above the Springfield's point blank capacity at the upper chest. As we get further away, the differences become even more pronounced. At 100 meters, which is pretty far, the Springfield is doing a measly 46 damage per hit to the chest, while the Spark remains strong at around 93 damage for the same hit location. That's still able to take off every health chunk but that base one with a chest hit. So it's the range drop off that really kills the Springfield. It can't be compared to the Sparks at all when you look at these numbers and how they actually stack up. The weapons may appear similar due to the single shot nature of both guns and a similar bullet velocity along with the Springfield's high starting damage, but as soon as you move past 20 meters, the cracks start to show. A far more fair comparison would be between the Winfield and the Springfield, as their damage profiles are much more similar. In fact, past 30 meters, the Springfield behaves much more closely to a Winnie than any long ammo rifle. What is interesting, however, is the headshot range. The Springfield's high headshot range may deceive you into thinking that it has more range than it actually does. However, a quick look at this table tells us why. Medium ammo has a higher multiplier than long ammo for headshots, which means it can maintain similar headshot range, while the body shot damage is way lower than the comparable long ammo shot at that point. Now there is only one more argument to address, which is that the Springfield's reload, and therefore rate of fire, make it better in close range fights, so if you're fighting people at like 40 meters, you're going to want to have a Springfield instead of a Sparks. Well, firstly, I think if you have time to spend over 2 seconds between shots, any decent opponent has already found cover and been able to heal, or they've moved in and killed you. 2 seconds is a long time to be reloading between shots in this game. If you have time to do that, it means you've gotten to a safe place. That means you could probably also reload a 3 or 4 second weapon like the Sparks. But the main point here is if you're taking the Springfield to fight at ranges like 40 and maybe 50 meters, why aren't you taking something like a Winfield? Or even a Romero and pushing up? For a similar price, they seem much more suited to that range category. Now, I really don't want to be the one to tell you not to use certain weapons because they aren't top tier. That's not the point of this video at all. I understand that you can have a lot of fun when using the Springfield. It is the only really cheap gun that lets you play around with long 100+ meter ranges, especially with the scope, and it is really snappy and it feels nice to shoot. I did have a good time playing around with it for this video. So if you like using the Springfield, use it. But to claim that it's even close in power to the Sparks is simply not true when you look at the damage curve. The issue with the Springfield is that it's a weapon that has an identity crisis. It wants to be a marksman rifle on the cheap, but it lacks the stopping power and range to do anything more than tickle enemies that are far away. If you are fighting in closer ranges, you're at a disadvantage against other similarly priced weapons such as the Officer, Winfield, or Romero. While you're also going to be at a disadvantage when fighting things like a long ammo and carabiner at longer ranges. The problem is that it has no niche, and therefore can be outcompeted at most range steps. What this whole process has taught me is just how important it is to understand range drop-off, and how deceptive those store stats can be. This video hasn't even taken into account penetration either, and that is a whole different can of worms that we don't have exact stats on yet, but I'm working on something to do with that, so stay tuned. Please let me know if there are any other weapons that you'd like us to analyze in the comments below. And as always, thank you to our Patreon supporters and for you guys for sticking with us and watching the video. This is Ascendance from 4FS Gaming.
I think if there was ever a
up top.
But
Punk just headshot me.
Yeah, I told you up top.
Yeah, it was like.
What weapon? I need to know his weapon.
Flank.
Crouching.
The crouch walkers.
screenshot it.
Killed one guy. Is there one up there still?